Okay, ladies and gentlemen, the Phase 2 data mining has officially begun, and we got an exclusive first look at over 55 new runes upcoming for every class inside of Phase 2. It's important to know that we're only going to be talking about the rune slots for the belt and boots, because those are the only slots that we know for sure is going to be inside of Phase 2. I would say the only thing changing with these runes are maybe some slight number tweaks or tuning, because I don't see them making any last-minute reworks a week before Phase 2's launch. Now, enough talk, jump right into it. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're interested in a leveling guide for Phase 2, check out our Rested XP link in the description below to help support the channel and level up pretty quick, as well as finding all of your runes. So check it out, you won't be disappointed. Starting off with our first class, the Druid, and diving right into their belt slots. First up, you have Berserk, which if you don't know, is a very powerful activatable cooldown, which reduces your energy cost inside of your cat form by 50% and causes your main goal to actually hit up to 3 nearby targets when you're in bear form. The only issue is that it's on a really long 3-minute cooldown. Not only that though, it also clears the effect of fear and makes you immune to fear for the entire duration. After that, for Balanced Druid, you have Eclipse. This gives you a nice rotational swap between using Starfire and Wrath consistently, so by using one, the other one gets increased critical strike chance by 30%, stacking up to 4 charges. Additionally, both spells gain 70% chance at all times to not lose casting time when you take damage, which is a nice little bonus for balance as well. And lastly, for the belt slots, you have Nourish, which heals a friendly target for a flat amount, and then heals for an additional 20% if you have Rejuvenation, Regrowth, Life Bloom, so on and so forth activated on the target. Additionally, it benefits and triggers from all effects associated with your healing touch, so it's a really nice little chunky heal for Restoration Druids. Moving on now to the boot slots. First up, you have King of the Jungle, which reworks your Tiger's Fury to now increase all physical damage dealt by 15% and grants you a nice chunk of 60 energy as well. This makes it pretty much exactly how it is in any other form of World of Warcraft, such as Wrath of the Lich King or Retail, so it's a very, very good change. For Balanced Druid, you actually have the Dream State rune, which your damaging spell critical strikes grant you 50% of your mana regen while casting for 8 seconds, and increases your nature damage dealt on the target by 20% for 12 seconds as well. This is going to be great for, keeping that mana up very, very well with Boomkin, as, previously they ran out of mana very easily in regular Classics, so it looks like they're steering clear from that very easily now with all these new rune additions. And finally, for Druid, you have Survival Instincts, a very powerful defensive cooldown that, when you activate it, grants you 30% of your maximum health for 20 seconds. In addition, you also gain some additional effects when you dodge in bear, cat, or human form as well. Overall, I think some of these Druid runes are really solid and will benefit the class greatly. I still think that bear tanks are missing out on a consistent AoE threat holder because Swipe just simply is not cutting it at this point. So hopefully they address that soon. The next class on the list is the Hunter, and kicking things off with the belt slots, you have Aspect of the Viper. Activating this aspect will now cause your ranged and melee attacks to generate mana, but reducing your total damage by 10%. In addition, you gain 10% of your maximum mana every 3 seconds, and is really going to be strong for leveling up and sustained DPS in those long duration fights for raid encounters. Next up, you have Exposed Weakness, your melee and range critical strikes to increase your attack power by 40% of your current agility for 7 seconds, and is really going to be strong just for Marksmanship Hunter spec to really give you some nice bonus attack power pretty much almost permanently, because you're going to be critting so often. You have Melee Specialist, which now causes your Raptor Strike cooldown to be reduced to 3 seconds and now become an instant attack. Mongoose Bite's cooldown is completely removed, and Raptor Strike additionally has a 30% chance on each attack to not trigger its own cooldown, giving you a very, very big damage boost to all melee hunter specs out there, and is going to be a must-have if you plan on playing survival melee DPS. Very, very good rune slot there. Lastly, for belt, you have Steady Shot, a very simple 1.5 second shot cast that causes 60% range weapon damage. Kinda okay at best. Moving on to boots now, you do have dual wield specialization for melee hunters as well, which now increases the damage done by your offhand weapon by 50% and causes your Raptor Strike to actually strike with both weapons when you are dual wielding. Now Raptor Strike also deals 30% increased damage while you're wielding 2 weapons of the same type. So ideally, you're going to be dual wielding now as a melee hunter, preferably either 2 swords or 2 axes, which is going to be really, really fun to play, and I'm sure is going to look great as well. This really pushes melee hunter into that dual wielding fighter role, and I'm going to be honest, I absolutely love it, and I think melee hunters will be a force to be reckoned with Phase 2. Beast Mastery hunters actually get Invigoration as well, where when your pet scores a critical hit with a special ability, you instantly regenerate 5% of your maximum mana, which is going to help with their sustain as well. Last but not least, you actually have Trap Launcher being implemented, which now permits your traps to be placed at any location within 40-yard range. It can be placed while you're in combat as well. Additionally, your fire-based and frost-based traps now have separate shared cooldowns, which is amazing for the class as a whole for PvP, and really opens up a lot of outplay potential, as well as flexibility for ranged DPS. Overall, ladies and gentlemen, I think Hunter got the most love out of all the classes, and they're looking excellent so far, heading into Phase 2 with all these new runes. On to the next class, we have the Mage. Starting off with our belt slot, we have the Frostfire Bolt Rune. This launches a bolt of frost fire, which slows down enemies and deals damage over time, and also counts as a frost and fire spell as well. We'll talk about how this could be used in a second with a rune you're going to unlock later. After that, we have the infamous Hot Streak, which anytime you score 2 non-periodic spell criticals in a row using fire-based spells, your next Pyroblast spell within 10 seconds will now become instant cast and is going to turn fire mages into Pyroblast slinging maniacs, and is going to be a lot of fun for this class come Phase 2. Everyone loves Hot Streak. It's a great, great addition. Arcane Mages actually acquire Missile Barrage, which gives your Arcane Blast and other casted abilities a percentage chance to actually reduce the channel duration of your arcane missiles. Additionally, it also reduces the mana cost to 0. This is going to turn Arcane into a fantastic DPS option inside of raids, and I'm really, really excited personally to see how this one turns out. Lastly, for the belt runes, you have Spell Frost Bolt, which is identical to Frostfire Bolt, but the Arcane and Frost version instead, and will actually lead us into our next rune with our boot runes. You have Brain Freeze, which causes your frost damaging spells with chilling effects, which causes your next Fireball spell, Frostbolt, or Frostfire Bolt spell to be instant cast and cost no mana. It's going to be very interesting to see how this interaction works, since on the tooltip it seems a little bit like messed up and scuffed. We're going to have to see how this works in-game come next phase. I'm not really sure at the moment, because if you're playing Frost or Arcane, I'm not really sure how you're going to be casting chill effects. And finally, for Arcane Mage healers, you have Chronostatic Preservation, which fuses Arcane Fire and Frost Magic to hold energy in a storage state for a later use to unleash on an ally to give a nice chunky heal, which is something that the spec desperately needed. Overall, very, very good. I'd say next phase, ladies and gentlemen, mages look really, really good, but I'm hoping for some other slots when it comes to the boots. It does look a little bit lackluster in a way coming from a DPS perspective, so we'll definitely have to see how that looks in the future. Moving on now to Blizzard's absolute favorite love child, we have the Paladin. Starting off with the belt slots, you have Enlightened Judgment, which increases the range on all your judgment spells by 30 yards, and increases your spell hit with all of your spells by a whopping 17%. After that, for Holy Paladins, you have the Infusion of Light Rune, which increases the damage done by your Holy Shock by 20%, and your damaging critical strikes with Holy Shock reset the cooldown on Holy Shock and Exorcism and refund the mana cost as well. This can be insane for Shock-it-in builds out there, just getting non-stop, like, Holy Shock procs, and tossing out loads of Exorcism, which is going to be really, really fun in PvP, I'm sure. Overall, very, very good rune. Lastly, for a belt, we have the Sheath of Light Rune, which whenever you deal damage with your melee weapon, it increases your spell power equal to 30% of your attack power for 1 minute. In addition, your critical healing spells heal the target for 60% of the healed amount over 12 seconds as well, giving Ret Paladins another phenomenal rune to just increase their DPS overall significantly and healing. Moving on now to the boot runes, you have Guarded by the Light, which each time you hit a target with your melee weapon, you gain 5% of your maximum mana every 3 seconds, for 15 seconds, but the amount healed by some of your healing spells is reduced by 50%, so this is most likely going to be for Retribution Paladins to solve their mana issues, but in return, it takes away that really big off-healing potential, which is going to be interesting to see. After that, you have Sacred Shield, which once you place it on a target and they take damage, they actually get an Absorb Shield, and increases the chance the Paladin can critically hit with Flash of Light by 50% for 6 seconds. If you actually critically heal the target with a Sacred Shield active with Flash of Light, then it's pretty much duplicated and healed over a 12-second duration. Fantastic addition for Holy Paladins, one of the most infamous spells that they've ever had, and is a huge, huge bonus to them overall, because all they really do is spam Flash of Light anyways throughout their rotation. And lastly, you have Art of War rune slot, which actually causes your melee critical strikes to reset the cooldown on Holy Shock and Exorcism, which, once again, can be disgusting for a Shock-it-in Paladin inside of PvP. Don't be surprised if you see that heading into Phase 2. I do think Paladin saw definitely some of the most love when it comes to, all their runes. Retribution solving their mana issues, Protection Paladin gaining, a lot of mana regen and Sacred Shield, and even Holy Paladin gaining some nice versatility between dealing damage and, consistently pumping out Flash of Lights with their Shock-it-in spec. Overall, a very big win for Paladin. You guys should be happy. Moving on to now Priest, which was one of the classes that desperately needed love in terms of damage with Shadow. Starting off with their first belt rune is going to be Mind Spike. This is a low mana cost DPS filler spell that increases the critical strike chance of your next Mind Blast on the target by 30%, stacking up to 3 times. This is going to be amazing for Shadow Priest overall and is going to help solve a lot of their issues. Additionally, Holy Priest also gain Empowered Renew, which now causes your Renew to heal 1 extra time immediately when you apply it, and it gains 15% increased benefit each time it heals from your bonus healing effect. For Discipline Priest, you actually have Renewed Hope, which causes your heals from some of your healing effects to have a 10% increased critical effect chance when casted on targets with Weakened Soul. To capitalize for Shadow Priest, they even gave them Dispersion. When you activate this ability, you disperse into Shadow Energy, reducing the damage you take pretty much almost to immunity, but you're unable to attack or cast spells, but you regenerate 6% of your maximum mana every second for 6 seconds. Once again, I think this is a step in the right direction with restoring a ton of your mana, roughly about 36%, and giving you a powerful defensive cooldown and CC immunity. Very, very good for Shadow Priest overall. Next up, Discipline Priest once again get Pain Suppression, which reduces all the damage taken by a friendly target by 40% and increases the resistance to actually dispel mechanics by 65% as well, which is going to be really strong in terms of PvP, and as well as PvE sometimes when you're facing, you know, enrage mechanics where the tank is going to get hit very hard. Lastly, for Holy Priest, you actually get Spirit of the Redeemer, which you can activate to become the Spirit of Redemption for a whopping 30 seconds. While you're in this form, any of the heals that you cast are completely free of mana cost, but you can't move, can't attack, you can't be attacked, or targeted by any spells or effects. So it pretty much makes you immune for 30 seconds, but you're stuck in that location. This is easily one of the most powerful healing cooldowns in the entire game instantly, and will be phenomenal in terms of PvP, PvE, open world dueling, and, you know, open world encounters. It's going to be really, really strong for Holy Priest, and I see them shooting up to near the top when they cast this ability. In my opinion, I think Priest saw probably the most love and attention out of any other class out there when it comes to all 3 specs for them. If you're still worried about mana for Shadow Priest, additionally, it was data mined that Shadow Priest will be getting Shadow Fiend to also help with that as well. So that's definitely something to look out for. Our next class on the list is going to be Rogue, and kicking things off with our belt runes, we have Poison Knife. This instantly throws your offhand weapon to deal normal damage, and instantly applying the poison from your offhand weapon to the target. Additionally, Poison Knife benefits from all the talents that trigger and modify Sinister Strike as well. Once again, they're giving Rogue another ranged rune ability, making me incredibly curious to test out a ranged Rogue PvP build. Should be kind of funny to try out. Next up, you have the infamous Shadow Step ability, which allows the rogue to step into the shadows at range and reappear behind your enemy target, increasing your movement speed by 70%. This instantly makes Rogue a major contender when it comes to PvP, as closing the whole gap was one of their biggest problems, so everyone get ready. Rogue is going to be a problem come Phase 2. Lastly, for the belt runes, you have Shuriken Toss, which is a ranged shuriken throw, which also strikes up to 4 nearby additional targets, and is most likely going to be used for AoE DPS or just threat holding for tanks. It's going to be a really nice addition also. Moving along now to the boot slots, you have Master of Subtlety, which causes your attacks made while you're stealth and for 6 seconds afterward to gain 10% damage. It's kind of decent. You have Waylay, which causes a nice slow on targets when you ambush or backstab them, and also reduces the target's melee attack speed. And then finally, you have Rolling with the Punches for rogue tanks, which increases your overall health percentage by 6% each time you dodge or parry, stacking up to 5 times, potentially up to 30% additional health, which can be very, very good in terms of tanking. I mean, when it comes to PvE, Rogue really didn't need much help with damage, so instead they just added a bunch of runes for PvP, and I don't really think Rogue mains are going to mind about that one at all. I don't think they're going to be complaining, so Rogues are going to be dominating in PvP next phase. They're going to be really, really strong, so everyone look out for that. Next up, we have Shamans, and kicking things off with our belt runes, we have the Fire Nova rune, and this replaces your Fire Nova totem, actually, with the Fire Nova ability. This causes your current Fire totem to emit a pretty much area of effect explosion at its location, dealing damage instantly. We'll see how the numbers look come in the next phase. After that, you have the Maelstrom weapon, which, when you deal damage with a melee attack, you have a chance to reduce the cast time of multiple casted DPS and healing abilities by 20%, stacking up to 5 times, pretty much making you have instant casted abilities as an enhancement shaman. It's going to be very, very good for PvP as well as PvE. Lastly, for belt, you have Power Surge, which causes each of your Flame Shock abilities damage over time effects to give you a percentage chance to reset the cooldown on your Lava Burst and Chain Lightning, and to actually make them instant cast, as well as chain heal as well. So this is going to be really big for Resto Shamans, Elemental Shamans, and it's going to be a very, very versatile version of Lava Surge, if you guys have ever played with that before. It's going to be really, really phenomenal for both these specs. Those specs are going to be a problem next phase when it comes to PvP. Moving on to boots, you have Ancestral Awakening, which causes your critical heals with your healing wave to summon an ancestral spirit to help heal the lowest percentage health party member within 40 yards for 30% of the amount you just heal. Kind of like another version of Overload, but automatically healing someone else who needs it. Next up, you have the Decoy Totem, which is brand new, something we've never seen, which summons a totem at your feet that will redirect the next melee or range attack made against the target to the totem instead. This totem also grants the target immunity to movement speed impairing effects for 10 seconds as well, and it's going to be great for PvP, I suppose. Lastly, for Shaman, on their boot runes, we have the Spirit of the Alpha, which infuses the target with the Spirit of the Alpha Wolf, increasing all threat they generate by 45%, and is generally the Shaman's version of Blessing of Salvation, just the opposite, where your tanks will get more threat rather than reducing the threat of all your party members, so that's going to be very interesting to test out as well. Additionally, for Shamans, they got a bonus rune for their chest slot, being the Two-Handed Mastery Rune that causes your melee attacks with two-handed weapons to increase your attack speed by 30% for 10 seconds. Combining this with Flurry, probably going to make Enhancement Shamans a problem when it comes to DPS and PvP next phase. It's going to be a lot of fun for Enhancement Shaman mains out there. Look out for that as well. Next up, we have the Masters of Darkness, the Warlock. First up, with their belt runes, you have the Grimoire of Synergy, which, granting damage done by you and your summoned minion, has a 5% chance to increase the damage done by the other one by 5% for 15 seconds. Additionally, you have the Invocation rune, which, refreshing your damage over time effects with less than 6 seconds on their duration, will actually cause you to deal instant damage to that target equal to 1 period of that spell's periodic damage. Overall, it seems kind of decent. For Destruction Warlock, you have the Shadow and Flame rune, which causes your critical strikes with fire and shadow spells to increase your fire and shadow damage by 10%. Once again, Destruction Warlock's getting more percentage-based damage runes, which is going to scale very, very well heading into the later stages of the game. Moving on to boot runes, you have the Dance of the Wicked, which causes you and your demon to gain dodge chance equal to your spell critical strike chance, and each time you deal a critical strike to an enemy, it causes both of you to gain 2% of your maximum mana when you do. You also have Demonic Knowledge, which increases your spell's damage and healing by a value equal to 10% of your demon pet's total stamina, plus intellect. And then lastly, you have the really, really cool Shadow Flame, which targets enemies in a cone in front of you, and they take damage instantly, and then additional fire damage over 8 seconds. Very, very cool rune there. Overall, though, I will say that Warlock runes, other than the Shadow Flame one, look pretty boring and very stale. A lot of them are just flat-out passive-based runes, so I don't know. We'll have to see. If Warlock mains out there, let me know how you feel about all these in the comment section below, because in my opinion, I wouldn't really be too happy about it. For the last class of the day, we actually have the Warrior. Starting off with our belt runes, we have the Blood Surge, which causes your Heroic Strike, Bloodthirst, and Whirlwind have a 30% chance to make your next slam within 15 seconds instant and costs no rage. Overall, a fantastic DPS rune to really add to the Warrior rotation even more. Next up, we have Focused Rage, which reduces the rage cost of all your offensive abilities by 3, and the Precise Timing rune, which now causes your slam to be instant, but have a 6-second cooldown. For the boot runes, they have Enrage Regeneration, which is an incredibly powerful defensive cooldown that heals you for 30% of your maximum life over 10 seconds, but it can only be used while you're enraged, Berserker Raged, or Blood Rage is active, and it's even usable while stunned. Overall, big bonus to warriors in PvP, gonna be very, very nice. You have Intervene also, which forces you to run at a high speed towards a party member, intercepting the next melee or ranged attack against them, as well as reducing their threat, which is going to be great for protection warriors also. And then lastly, you have Rallying Cry, which is one of the best raid-wide defensives in all of World of Warcraft history, increasing your raid members' health by 15%, which can be really, really good and giving your healers enough time to really get everyone back up and healthy to save the poll. Overall, ladies and gentlemen, all of these classes got some really good changes, but I gotta say, my favorite ones so far have got to be the Priest and the Hunter. Both these classes got some really, really great additions to both Melee Hunter and Shadow Priest. Both of them felt kind of weird to play. They were in like a awkward middle ground state. I think they're really, really good now. We're gonna see how these changes implement them and how they feel. I think Shadow Priest in particular, they're going to be really, really strong. So the question is, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think about the new runes coming in Season of Discovery Phase 2? What class are you going to main, and are you happy about the runes they're getting? let us know about it in the comment section below. Don't forget, we're going to be doing a deep dive on all these classes heading into Phase 2, and an ultimate class picking guide and where we would rank them, a tier list, all that fun stuff. So definitely be on the lookout for that, because that's going to be a super fun video to make. We also have so much more content coming in Phase 2 for Season of Discovery in the next few weeks. So if you want to get flooded with Season of Discovery content, go ahead, hit that subscribe button. I want to thank you all so much for watching this video. It really is an absolute pleasure to be making content for you all. Till the very end, my name's Scott from the Comeback Kids. We'll see you all next one. Peace.